Welcome to GROHE. My name is Carl Lennon, leader of A&D in the projects channel at GROHE. We're here today to share with you our REBA approved CPD content on 3D printing for advanced bathroom fittings. We'd like to kick the presentation off with a brief company introduction. We then look at 3D printing and what that is within the manufacturing industry. More specifically, we then move toward 3D printing for advanced bathroom fittings and the advantages of which. We close the presentation out with a look toward sustainability and what the impact these products can have on the environment. And then we close with a wonderful reference case study. In terms of learning objectives today, first we'll start off with 3D printing and what that means for the manufacturing industry. Then we'll look towards more specifically something personal to us at GROHE, which is for bathroom fittings and the advantages of which. And we'll finish with sustainability and the impact that has on the environment. GROHE is now Europe's largest sanitary ware brand. We're positioned number 1, and we have 5 manufacturing facilities around the world, 3 of which are in Germany. Our headquarters is in Düsseldorf, and we are now represented in over 130 countries. We've been part of the Lixil Corporation since 2014. Here at GROHE, we pride ourselves on 4 key brand values: quality, technology, design, and sustainability. And you can see here on the screen now some of the acknowledgements we've received in the past. We've been voted very proudly in the top 3 most sustainable companies in Germany, and we have sustainability as one of our key brand values. We look at this topic by using intelligent technologies to enhance the performance when it comes to water saving and, of course, energy efficiency. We're proud here of our GROHE Go Zero program, which meant to us from last year we were carbon neutral in manufacturing. But why would you talk to a company like GROHE about 3D printing? Well, of course, we've used 3D printing to explore new lines in the past, and more recently have launched 2 lines, the reimagination of our Atrio and Allure Brilliant in a 3D printed format. So you can see here on the screen, deck-mounted and wall-mounted solutions for each of the collections, which really turn a design and stream into reality. First, we'll start by looking at 3D printing technology. So what is it? In the first case, 3D printing technology is a process of constructing 3-dimensional objects from a digital file. This is known as an additive process. And what we mean by that is that you are adding layers and layers of metal in order to create a structure or product. Viewed as the growth area in many, many parts of this world, and it can involve a number of different materials. So within the industry of 3D printing, there are 3 different types of technology. The first, SLS, selective laser sintering, is what we use here at GROHE in order to create our products, and we'll touch on that in a little while. FDM, fused deposition modeling. This is where a filament is passed through a heated nozzle in order to create a structure. And then the oldest technology, SLA, stereolithography, which is not used quite so prominently now in the manufacturing process. So what materials can we use to print with? Well, you can see on screen now here a number of different solutions, and we can even now print with chocolate. So areas of application, we actually see now within the medical industry, even body parts can be printed, which is quite an incredible innovation in technology, even down to architecture, which is something very close to us in the projects that we work with. Architects and designers are now using 3D printing within their own processes. They use it to 3D print models or even complex structures that sometimes would have been difficult with conventional construction methods. This, of course, improves accuracy and enhances their creativity. We'd like to share with you now a fantastic reference project by Dutch architect MX3D, the Hackaday Bridge in Amsterdam. This was a bridge that was created by 3D printing in pieces. The pieces were then assembled in their factory, shipped to the construction site, and interestingly, were allowing of data capture. They had sensors placed across the bridge to understand how the bridge would work in the future. what an incredible project. We saw there a 3D printed structure, and now we move to a 3D printed house. In 2019, a US company printed a home entirely through the 3D printing process using concrete. This had many benefits: speed, reduction of manual labor, elimination of waste, and a continual, unbroken thermal envelope. So what's the pros and cons of 3D printing? Well, first off, freedom of design. An architect or a designer can be way more creative with the process of 3D printing than they can with other technologies. It can be more rapidly manufactured. There's a much reduced amount of waste that comes with these projects because you print what you need and not what you necessarily have on the construction site, and it's way more cost effective as a consequence. But the cons, of course, there's an additional machinery cost that comes with it, and there's at the moment a limited selection of materials. We saw quite a wide range to start with, but really there's not as many construction materials as you perhaps would see in conventional construction methods. And of course you're somewhat restricted to size that you create these products. So it could be the case that you have to print in pieces in order to then assemble a full project. What do we see as the future of 3D printing technology? Well, it's an industry that's still in its infancy. We now see, I think, somewhere in the region of nearly 8 million 3D printing machines in use around the world. But this is, of course, a new technology that's constantly evolving with different welding equipments and robotics that are involved to create structures. We're seeing lots of companies begin to adopt this technology, and of course that means that we can create not just eye-catching designs but sustainable solutions for projects. But what's important to us is to look at 3D printing for advanced bathroom fittings, something relevant to us in particular here at GROHE. So when it comes to 3D printing a faucet, let's say, what would we use as a material? Well, metal is considered to be the apex of all printing material. It has the right chemical properties in order to create thermal and structural strength than other materials that could be used. We use the technology of power bed fusion, and quite specifically the sintering process, which combines heat and pressure to bind the metal as it's printed from the machine. This is slightly different from the melting process, whereby with the melting, you tend to get a typically more denser product and a heavier product. And this is more used in the automotive industry and in aerospace, let's say. But for the purposes of a bathroom, the sintering process is perfectly adequate. In terms of the materials we use with 3D printing, of course we mentioned there metal. There's many metals that you could use: stainless steel, aluminium, titanium. But what we feel at GROHE is very important is a modified stainless steel. And why might that be? Well, with a modified stainless steel, you can have a finish that is more perfect when it comes off of the 3D printing machine itself. It's much smoother. With a conventional method, what you might find is that you have a slightly abrasive surface and there may be more imperfections in the print itself. So with the modified steel, what you find is because you can control the chemical reactions that occur during the 3D printing process, you get a much higher quality of print and a reduction of cost as an outcome. What advantages are there when it comes to 3D printing that can bring sanitary fittings specifically? Well, you can see on the screen here quite a captivating shot of our 3D icon in our Lure Brilliant collection. It becomes a sort of disbelief when you see this for the very first time as to how water is passed through such an item. So it means with this wonderful technology, we can create something that has a very thin structure, a lot of negative space, that almost becomes an optical illusion as to how water is passed through. In terms of the manufacturing process, what that allows us to then do is create a more refined tapware where we use much less materials than we would do with your conventional method of manufacture. There's of course no limit to personalization or customization, and we can create small tailored lines that sit perfectly for the project. So we don't have to create a setup that's going to launch a mass production of the product itself. The future of manufacturing. What we see here is a disruptive technology, a technology that allows us to work differently. We don't have the conventional factory that we had before. We can simply print from a 3D file in any part of the world. This allows for many beneficial pieces: reduction of cost, quick mobilization, enhanced sustainability, altered supply chain. All of these are key benefits when it comes to 3D printing. More specifically, the process of 3D printing for bathroom fittings. In the first case, the component is laser scanned, then layer by layer, metal is put upon each other until you have a physical structure that's created. From there, there's a mechanical treatment with a CNC milling machine, which takes the product off the press, and the final process is then hand finished in our factory before then delivery to the customer. Of course, like anything, there's regulations and standards that we have to meet, and you can see on the screen now some of the British standards that we have to do when it comes to additive manufacture. As I mentioned earlier, 3D printing is a technology in its infancy, and so there is really quite limited regulations that we have to comply to at this current moment. But of course, that will come into play more increasingly over time. Another important point is health and safety. First off, we have to follow the manufacturer's instructions for the 3D printing machine in order to make the product and ensure that there's good ventilation and a reduction of fire risk within the space itself. And like all at these times, we have to wear the correct PPE in order to make the products themselves. In the next slide here, we're going to see a short video from the design process all the way through to the manufacture of a 3D icon, a process that never fails to amaze me. So what are the advantages of bathroom fittings being 3D printed? Well, in the first case, we have a high level of personalization. An architect or designer in the future could come to us and work with us, collaborate with us in order to create a 3D printed faucet, let's say. You see on the slide here, metal granules. And what we mean by that is that GROHE has its own recipe when it comes to the metals we use in 3D printing. Of course, what's important is to have the right properties, thermal properties and structural properties in the metal that you need to print a product. And so here we create our own under lock and key in Germany, such that we maintain the quality of a product when it's manufactured. And we're open to creativity. We can explore different proportions, different shapes, negative space within a product, like we can't do with conventional construction methods. Like anything, and perhaps more so with these products, we have the quality assurance and technical support that's required. They come with the GROHE standard, manufacturer's warranty, and the right planning advice with specification people like myself to support the project needs, whether that's technical data, BIM support, or just general technical questions that may need to be answered for a project. Sustainability is an incredibly important topic for us, and with the 3D icon it's no different. What we see here is two benefits in a sustainable angle. First is the reduction of CO2 emissions, and number two is water efficiency. Now, what do we mean by that? How do we reduce the carbon footprint when it comes to the manufacturing process? In manufacture, we have more efficient and more accurate use of more materials, and that means less waste. You have less requirement for transportation, and what I mean by that is you could localize the manufacturing to the construction site. So just because we sit in Germany doesn't mean to say that the faucet would have to be printed there necessarily. And at the point of use, we have way more water efficiency with reduced CO2 emissions in water supply. Water saving by design. What we mean by this is within the design of a product, we can actually bring the water consumption down. Typically, a GROHE faucet would flush through around about 5.7 litres per minute. With the 3D icon, we're around about 5 litres. And that's not to say that in the future, with further design improvements, we couldn't even bring that down further still. We'd like to close the presentation out with a wonderful reference case study. You'll see here on screen now the Under restaurant in Norway. Under was designed by the world famous architect Snoeta. It's Europe's first underwater restaurant, 5.5 meters under the sea, and is a wonderful premium dining experience for people that get to visit, and I hope to do so myself one day. You can see on the wall here a wall-mounted version of the 3D icon Atrio, and of course, designers being designers could not pick the standard product off the shelf, so we have here a customized solution which has infrared technology, which has also the advanced touchless situation for hygiene purposes, but of course also for water saving, where you're only using water as and when it's activated. So in closing, we'd like to look at our learning outcomes for today. We've improved our understanding of 3D printing technology for the manufacturing industry. We've looked at metal as a material and how that works within bathroom fittings, and the product considerations when it comes to 3D printing itself. Of course, important too, as at GROHE, is sustainability and the impact that such a product can carry. We have 2 other CPDs also REBA accredited, and we'd love for you to join us with those. The first of which is on hygiene optimization for bathrooms, and the second of which is water saving without compromising on performance. Thank you for joining us, and look forward to seeing you on further CPD sessions on GROHE X.